we're talking about trans advocacy here. Let's talk to this person who's been on the line for over 2 hours.
My God.
Let's talk to Damien. Damien, pronouns he, him, calling in from nipple yeast.
Ooh.
Talking about fungi growing on your areolas, who says, I think trans activists, don't make a discussion. Yeast is all around you, Roxanne. Damien says, I think trans activists are dropping the ball in their advocacy because of both internal inconsistency and over-reliance on subjective experiences. I have problems with both of those things. Damien, you're on the line with Forrest and Roxanne. How are you doing today?
Hey, what's going on? Listen, first of all, I just want to apologize. Like when I reread that thing, it came off a lot. It doesn't quite represent what it is that I'm trying to say. So we'll start there and just kind of say, I'll say this, like I'm approaching this really as an advocate. Like as an ally, in the sense that I think we agree on 99.9% of things. Like I'm a raging lefty. I'm 100% like on that side. However, I also will say this, I'm approaching this as also a clinician, and also as a confidant and close friend of a person who went through this kind of gender dysphoria and the treatment thereof. So I know that, anecdotal evidence and N equal one experiments are the worst types of evidence. But I will say that that offered me certain insights and experiences that really made me pull back and ask questions as a clinician. So I'll start by saying this, that, a friend of mine named Ardern, and by the way, the pronouns that I use are the ones that she wants me to use. When she first came to me and she told me that, she felt like a trans man, she had what most people would say was the ideal situation. Everyone around her was supportive. She had a robust community who was willing to kind of support her through it. And, they pushed her and they made, they advised her to seek trans affirming or gender affirming psychologists and doctors and everything. And she went through that process for about 6 or 7 years. And by her own admission, she felt like she was miserable the entire time. And the reason why she gives is, as she places it, she says she was supported to death almost. And again, it's a little dramatic to say that, but I think, again, from her experience and maybe some of my questions was, she also had things like self-harming behavior. She had risk-taking behavior. She had anxiety. She had depression. She had all these things that were kind of framed as secondary symptoms of her kind of a trans, her gender dysphoria. And by her own reporting, she felt that, and even my thinking of it, is I think her dysphoria was a symptom, was secondary to something else, as opposed to being the root cause of all the others. So she kind of went through therapy, and when she went through it, the goal was always, not the goal, let me not say the goal, but the assumption is that she was going to have gender affirming surgery, right? And through conversations and conversations I had with her, that was also her goal. She was like, well, when I asked her, I said, well, when she first told me, I feel like I'm a man, I said, well, tell me what that means to you, right? And when she described it, she goes, oh, I've always wanted to kind of like have a flat, muscular chest. I've always wanted to grow a beard. I've always wanted to have that certain swagger, and what she was describing was, I guess you could say, the performance of masculinity. And again, no one questioned it. Everyone says, yes, this is a trans man. And for many years, she was a trans man. But I think when she realized that it wasn't working, she didn't feel better. She didn't feel like she was getting any closer to a solution or any closer to that kind of homeostasis or that kind of self-affirmation. She began to kind of question what else she could be doing. So she started to have a lot of reflective conversations with herself and also with me. Because I'm also a clinician. I also work in healthcare. And I think what I tried to offer her was a safe space to kind of just really explore and articulate and kind of like throw her guts on the slab to figure out what it is that she was feeling. And I think after those conversations, and again, I'm not trying to make myself a hero of the story, but after talking to me and other people, what she realized is that she was never really a trans man. She was just a non-binary masculine, I guess, woman, right? And she did, by the way, save up money to have surgery. But the surgery she had was
summarize.
breast reduction. I'm sorry, and then
right.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear. I just want to like.
She did all those things. Okay, go ahead.
Sure, that's fine. I just want to summarize here. Just like the whole story you've told us here is that you had a friend who explored her gender identity, thought that maybe she might be a trans man because that's the way she was leaning. She had an amazingly supportive community of people who loved her and accepted her and gave her every opportunity that she needed to explore that. She had doctors and psychologists that were allowing her to explore these things in a staged and measured process to make sure that she could keep her options open while exploring her gender identity. And eventually she came to the conclusion that in fact she was actually she was non-binary and just liked masculinity a little bit more and wasn't actually trans. And so she readjusted her gender presentation to better associate and got some gender affirming care in order to better align her physical body with her gender identity. And now she is happy. That's the summary of the story you just gave me.
That's where it is. Right. So, but the second part of that,
you have just described a success story. I don't understand why this is an issue with anything like this. It sounds to me like the worst thing this person had to go to, first of all, being supported to death. Okay, I can tell you a bazillion trans person that I can tell you about a bazillion trans people that wish they had that problem, right? It sounds to me like the worst thing this person had to deal with was a bunch of well-meaning but maybe a little annoying friends who tried too hard to overcompensate and accept her, and she was made uncomfortable by it. And what an amazing problem to have. You have described a success story. I don't see how this ties back into anybody dropping the ball in advocacy. And
this is where I'm going to tell you is I think because yes, in her circumstances, right, this is an enviable problem to have in a lot of ways. But I think what it revealed to me is I think that there was an overcompensation. I think there was an over-reliance or an over-caring because of the way the medical community and the psychological community dropped the ball when we were talking about sexuality, when we were talking about conversion therapy, when we were talking about all those things. We realized that that it was seen as adversarial and it was seen as hostile to question a person, to push back on a person, to ask that person, is that when they say this, is this what they mean, blah, blah, blah. So what she basically said to me was that she wished someone would have. She wished someone would have asked her to really kind of put her thinking to the test, kind of say some things out loud. But I think from her experience, it was just a matter of, she had green lights and open roads the whole way, which again, enviable problem to have. But I think in her situation, and I think in a lot of situations, I think we need to kind of tighten up the ship. Okay, let me back up for a second. I think because
I just want to understand, what is the actual problem though? Because you're saying she didn't have, you're saying she didn't have any pushback and she had this super, what would you prefer? Would you prefer that at some point during the gender transition process, we just allow people to sit in a room with a transphobe for a while to say some hateful shit just in case it changes their mind? What's the solution?
I think the ultimate goal and the ultimate takeaway from this was that she had associated sex and gender so tightly that she felt in order to change one, you have to alter the other. So I think when we think about the language, even the language we use, we talk right in the face about how sex and gender are two completely different things. But then when it's time to talk about supporting these people, we start to get kind of wishy-washy and permeable with those two terms. So maybe I'm being a radical when I say this, but I think what is gender affirming surgery? I mean, think about even that term feels like a contradiction in terms. It feels like a contradiction.
No, it doesn't.
Say that your gender. Well, I feel like if you're going to say, well, what does it take to, if gender is a construct, if gender is a subjective thing that we experience and it's a personal thing, here's the catchphrase. We always say, well, my dick does not make me a man. Excuse me while I go have bottom surgery so I could feel more like a man. You know what I'm saying? That type, again.
No, I don't. We associate in our society in our
Right.
society today,
Right.
we tend to intertwine sex and gender quite a bit. That is not
Yeah.
historically how it has been done, but it has been in the
Mhm.
modern era. And so, as we talked about earlier, I think we talk about on the show, like the
Mhm.
vast majority of gender affirming care is done for cisgender people. Hair plugs, facial reconstruction,
Right.
breast
Yeah.
augmentation, breast reduction, breast
Mhm.
removal. Talking about whatever you like, lip fillers. Talking about cellular butt injections. Talking about
Mhm.
penis enlargement. Talking about Viagra. Talking about like puberty blockers. Like all of these things are things that are done for cis people 99 times out of 100.
Right.
And so, like, it is because we live in a society that associates gendered behaviors and gendered expectations with physical characteristics that those things happen. And so, your friend is living in the same world as you and I, and therefore she's
Mhm.
going to have those same associations. And what a wonderful thing that she was able to sort this out under the safe and watchful eye of a psychologist or a psychiatrist and a doctor. Amazing for her that she had that opportunity. And wow, what a good thing that she had friends who were so kind and accepting that they got to the point that they were annoying and actually helped her realize that she had a different opinion than she thought she did. Like, again, overall, nothing about what you're saying necessitates to me a change in like the ally community. If people are being wishy-washy with these terms, they should stop. But like,
Right.
understanding the difference between sex and gender, and understanding that gender affirming care and like gender transition still involves your physical body. Like, I don't think those are incompatible ideas in any way. Roxanne, do you have
I just
anything
think
that you're thinking that like I'm not touching on?
I know this is an exhausting call, honestly. No, I mean, like I think part of what I've been thinking is like it goes back to what I said. I think it was our first caller of like, to be able to explore your identity is really important and valuable. And for someone to explore it, hit, okay, I think I'm trans. I want to explore that to its fullest limits. And then be like, maybe that's not fully right for me. And land on a different, more suited identity based on what they've actually come to discover about themselves rather than what the world is telling them is really, really important. Like everyone should be exploring their identity to the fullest limits. So for someone to, maybe go all the way in your mind and then come back some. I don't think that's bad.
I think maybe it was I used her story as an anecdote, but just to maybe kind of detach from that. I think the point I'm trying to make is if we want to be advocates for decoupling the concept that gender should be seen through the filter of anatomy and physiology, and that sex should be seen through the filter of psychology and sociology. I think we need to kind of stand on that business to say, while maybe we've seen these traditionally as inseparable and cannot be decoupled, we need to decouple them. And I think using her, a great story she has, but I think in her words, when the conversation about her having that surgery went from life-saving surgery to cosmetic surgery, or something I want to do because I like the aesthetic, or because I want to see myself a certain way in a certain mirror, as she describes it, it lowered the temperature for her. So again, the point I'm trying to make is I think if we're going to fight, yes, I'm listening.
Damien, two things. Number one, you just mixed up. You got sex and gender backwards. It's neither here nor there. The second thing
that was intentional.
is that
I first crossed those on purpose.
Okay, I misunderstood you.
Right. I was saying,
then I misunderstood you, and I apologize. But that's not the point. Yeah, I thought I was helping. I apologize. I misunderstood you. The point that I think is really important here is that okay. First of all, sometimes cosmetic surgery is life-threatening or is life-saving surgery. We know this about gender affirming care as a thing, right? So, like, the second thing is that if this is the worst case scenario here, where this person had an amazing support group and good medical help and then decided to not transition after all, why on earth would you want to change the system for this one patient. That is not how medical science advances. And more importantly, this is a success story. And you're saying, so now we need to rework this so that maybe in the future, other people don't go through the harrowing experience of being supported too much. And meanwhile, the flip side of that is that people are going to fall through the cracks more and lose their lives. So like, it sounds to me like you've just got like this, you've got an anecdote, and you as a clinician, as someone who studies science, should know that anecdotes are just anecdotes. And it doesn't really tell you much about clinical guidelines. It certainly doesn't tell you about behavior of people as a whole. How horrible this person's life is that they had so many welcoming and supporting friends and the opportunity to achieve medical or receive medical care. I'm so sorry for them. But like at the end of the day, this is still a good thing you've described, and it's just not, it's not worth digging into calling people like inconsistent in their advocacy or they're over like whatever. I know you said you said originally like that's a bit aggressive, but like that's still what it's sounding like, and it sucks. And I don't think it's necessary at all.
No, I'm going to leave it at this. The point I'm trying to make is in this anecdote, which I preface by saying I understand that this is not something we hang our hat on. I'm using this as an example of the things that worked. I think we need to lean into. The things that I think slowed the progress or kind of diverted her from the place she needed to be is I think we need to question those things. And the things I identified as working is giving her a non-judgmental space to explore those things. What didn't work was kind of trapping her. And again, maybe I didn't go into the description of some of the support groups she found, some of the assumptions people made about her. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But the reality is
then you as a clinician should explore the literature surrounding those things. And if you think the evidence-based best practices could be better, then you should write about it. But as of right now, you have yet to describe anything to me that sounds unwanted or unwarranted. Like this all sounds great. So but I will say this, but even the APA website gets a little flippy floppy and permeable when they differentiate between gender and sex. So what I'm saying you
is
should publish a guideline on communication.
Okay.
Like I'm sorry, man. It's just it's okay is all I can tell you. Like yes, I agree with you that there are some people out there that should know better, that conflate sex and gender a little bit more than they should. I've done it before. That's one of the reasons why I remade my sex and gender video, because in an attempt to try to show this, falsity of some of these things, I was unclear. And there were some times where I even just mixed up the words accidentally. And so it just sucks. So I've done it before. Everybody's done it before. Everybody should be corrected. I agree with that. But this anecdote you've given us is not serving the purpose I think you want it to. And to just say people need to be more careful, to be very clear about the difference between sex and gender. Agreed. And there's nothing else to move on there, really.
Okay.
Well, thanks so much for waiting for as long as you did, Damien. I sincerely appreciate that. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Take it easy.
Can I say, as the real trans person here, I've never known a single trans person in my entire fucking life who would ever say that they were supported to death. The opposite in every single case. But okay.
That's how she knew she wasn't trans, Ardern, is that she was too supported, and she's like, this can't be. I must be non-binary. Oh man.
That was wild.
Yeah.
That was but also not at all what the question that he wrote was, which was about like trans activists. I don't know. I was at no point did I understand where he was trying to go, quite honestly.
It's funny. This person was benign in their opinion, as far as I'm concerned, more relatively, but like it was the first time I've ever actually like been a little bit of a tattletale and like had to do something. I posted about a talk that I gave at OSU CHS, which I mentioned earlier. I gave a talk for the research colloquium about research and communication guidelines around sex and gender and all these things. And I had this guy comment on my Instagram saying, about how this is all just, fairy tale bullshit and all this stuff. And I was like, hey, dude, just fucking don't take it up with me. This is literally basic science. And he's like, well, in my medical school training, I never learned all this gender bullshit. And I'm like, what? But you should get your money back. What the fuck? Turns out the dude's a fucking pathologist and like has co-founded and runs a pathology lab and is like, yeah, all this woke science crap just really doesn't hold up. And like, actually, and I was like, you fucking take it up with the National Health Institute and the World Health Organization. This is like governing bodies in your area are saying that you're fucking wrong. And he goes on this tangent about how like the NIH and the WHO have lost all their credibility lately, and they're just woke political ideological organizations. They don't even serve science anymore, and like you shouldn't trust them and all stuff. I'm like, can you fucking please start saying that to your patients so they know to leave? And like at the end, what he was saying was so fucking egregious. It was the first time I've ever done this, but I actually called his fucking practice. I looked him up because he has his full fucking name in his bio.
No, people be posting this with their actual name, all of the identifying information.
I typed his name into Google with the word phlebotomist. I found his stuff. And he turns out he co-founded this phlebotomy clinic thing, this lab. But he was not the owner. He wasn't the CEO. He wasn't the board chairman. And so like the first time I've ever done this kind of shit, but I called in, I was like, hey dude, I hate to be this guy, but if he was saying this about literally anything, it would be stupid and dangerous. But the fact that he's also roping in this transphobic nonsense that is bad for your patients, I wouldn't want somebody representing my business that spoke this way, let alone fucking treating me. And like, I just sent screenshots of the things. I was like, if you find this as alarming as I do, please do something about it. Because that's so fucking like, that is malpractice. That is such a shitty thing to be like, listen, I'm going to take care of you as a doctor, but you got to know, like, the largest biomedical research association in the world, bullshit. They're non-credible. They're just not.
Did they get back to you? Did you know if anything happened?
The person I talked to said that it was very alarming and very concerning, and they're going to look into it. But I have not heard anything since then, nor do I expect to. And I'm sure that guy is real upset. But like I said, I don't usually do shit like that. I really don't. But like I am not like the kind of guy like the TikTok people that get real famous. Like this person said something racist. I found their job and report. Like I don't do shit like that. But in this case, this person's talking about treating patients while also saying the World Health Organization is non-credible because they disagree with him politically. And I'm just like, dude, I'm not gonna tolerate that shit. Absolutely not. And you're a fucking pathologist too. You're studying disease and you're going to say like, yeah, but like, you know what? Those certain diseases, I just think it's ideological. No, come on.
Wild.
Hey there, everyone. We want you to check out our live shows. 6 days a week, 6 shows a week, 5 days a week, 6 shows. And also there are other channels coming. And this part is meaningless, but you could support this channel by watching the live shows, by checking out another episode. Tell the algorithm you want to stay here. You're not going to go off to some video of some super rich guy committing war crimes. You're going to stick around here and maybe you'll leave a comment, or what else could they do, Eve?
They could head over to patreon.com/calltheline, right? Am I looking?
That's another thing, and they can
right
and they could subscribe. No, you got it right. I got it wrong the first time.
And they could also comment. Yeah.